When is the Nintendo Switch 2 actually getting revealed? Hey there everyone, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Botox Games, and today I wanted to once again theorize and speculate with you all when we will actually see the announcements of Nintendo's next home console. So, from what we know, right, it's getting announced before March 31st, 2025. Nintendo said as much back in May. However, a lot of people, myself included, had been kind of gearing up for a fall announcement for this console, September, October, right in that range. And that's kind of what I've been saying for a very long time. Even like last year around this time, I was like, yeah, fall 2024, that's when we will likely see the reveal. They will likely mimic what they did with the Nintendo Switch back in 2016. October reveal, maybe September this time, kind of change it around a little bit. But I'm honestly starting to have my doubts. I feel like people might not like what I say in this video, but after thinking about it for a while, after how good that last Nintendo Direct was, I've started to have my doubts, and I think there's a chance that we actually don't see it this year. Nintendo was very specific in their wording, where they said it will be revealed this fiscal year, so by March 31st of next year. They could have said this calendar year if they were intending to reveal it this year. That's not necessarily a end-all, be-all, right? They could say just fiscal year, because that information did come out of their investor meeting, so that's why they would refer to it in fiscal years, but I do think there is a chance that we actually don't end up seeing it until like January of next year, and here's why. If you missed my video a week or two ago, I talked about how I absolutely think there will be a September Direct, which is right around the time that a lot of people think this thing will actually be announced. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean both can't happen. Nintendo could host a Nintendo Direct in early September, be it a full Direct, be it a partner showcase, be it a mini, whatever. I would lean towards a full general Direct with a bunch of first-party games in it again. They could do that and then also have a Switch 2 reveal extravaganza in late September. Initially, the Switch was revealed in late October via a 3-minute teaser. And I guess a big question will be, like, what kind of format will this reveal even take? Will it be a 3-minute teaser like it was before? Or will they come out the gate swinging with a big presentation that shows off the games, like the launch games, the launch window games, even beyond into like 2026? If it's just a 3-minute teaser showing the console and maybe teasing a couple games like they did with the NX back in 2016, if it's just a short teaser like that, I don't think the September Nintendo Direct really affects it, assuming there is one. However, if it's a big event, I would say it's a lot less likely that it's going to happen this year, because, like I said in my Nintendo Direct video, with how much stuff they announced in the June Direct, I mean, we have a new Zelda game coming out, Mario & Luigi, Mario Party, we're getting teases of this Amio horror game, which I presume is first-party Nintendo at least published. A September Direct makes a ton of sense to market those games again, even if there's not that many new announcements, exciting announcements, even if it's just remakes, remasters, no new games. A September Direct to market their holiday lineup, this Amio game, assuming that's also coming out this year, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm just not really sure if Nintendo would have a big Direct like that next to a big showcase revealing a ton of games for the Switch 2. I'm not saying it's impossible, I'm not even necessarily saying it's unlikely, but it is just something to think about. Like, would they have a packed September showcase, once again, even if it's not new announcements, next to a big Switch 2 reveal events? I don't know, it feels kind of weird. So if there is a reveal this year and there is a September Direct, I feel like a teaser might make a little bit more sense for the Switch 2. It is worth noting that back in 2016, they did actually have a September Direct specifically focused on 3DS games. At that point, the Wii U was dried up, but they had that final 3DS Direct to kind of really lay out a lot of the final games, a lot of the final new games coming to 3DS in 2016, as well as into 2017. In fact, now that I think about it, how many new games were announced for the 3DS after the Switch? I'm talking new games. There were a lot of remakes and remasters like WarioWare Gold and all the Mario and Luigi games and Luigi's Mansion, a lot of Mario stuff. Was there any actual just like new games announced after the Switch came out for 3DS? Like wholly original? I'm actually not sure if that's true. That's interesting. But with that being said, I feel like a September reveal for this console makes a lot of sense because of TGS. I've talked about this before. If they can announce it before TGS, if you don't know, that's Tokyo Game Show. It's a big trade show in Japan, one of the biggest in the world. Announcing it before TGS would allow so many developers to announce games for it, show off games for it. One of them, a major one, being Capcom. I think it is likely that we will see Monster Hunter Wilds running on this thing. One launch day next year, whenever it's releasing. We still don't have a released window beyond 2025 for Monster Hunter Wilds, which I find to be kind of suspect. I assume it's early 2025, but they haven't said that, which I find kind of weird, which makes me think that maybe they're they're holding back because they're waiting for Nintendo to kind of go first and say like, hey, here's the Switch 2 release date. Because I presume Capcom wants Monster Hunter Wilds on Switch 2. Maybe if it's not day one necessarily, at least certainly soon after. But beyond Capcom, I mean, there's just so many major third-party Japanese developers that would love, I'm sure, to show off games. Sega, Square Enix, there's just plenty of reason to announce this thing before TGS, and maybe even have that be one of the big first kind of public events for this console where you can maybe even get hands-on, depending on how soon before they announce it. I mean, if they announce it like the week of TGS, that would certainly be a little close, because then there'd be a lot of leaks potentially happening, which we could start seeing soon, right? We could start seeing a lot of leaks for this thing. I believe the Switch started leaking in July, like fully leaking. We knew about the dock and the Joy-Con, or maybe not the names of them, but we knew the general concept of the Switch from Eurogamer in July of 2016. So maybe we're at that point now with Switch 2. But I do think it might be worth bracing ourselves for a 2025 reveal for this console. A lot of us are hoping for a March release, similar to what happened with the Switch. I've been saying that for literally years at this point. And I mentioned a few weeks ago, maybe a month or two ago, I still think that's the case. I do still think we will see this console released in March. However, in that video, I gave myself a little bit of leeway. I'm moving the goalpost a tiny bit, if you would allow me, dear viewer. I feel like there is a chance they could be like, hey, it's coming out in April, maybe even May. I would lean towards May being a little bit too late, but March or April, I feel like April's possible. And if it releases in April, I don't really see any issue with them announcing it in January, like full reveal announcing it in January, because from everything we've heard, the Switch 2 is just a more powerful Switch. I think there will be some sort of gimmick, but not like a major gimmick. And certainly, you know, it's not going to be like a whole new screen or new controller, maybe some new weird controller gimmick, but nothing like the Wiimote, certainly. So having a closer full reveal to release does kind of make sense, because they don't need to do that 3-minute teaser necessarily. They don't need to sell you on the concept. They just need to show you, here's the console, here's the release date, here's the price, and most importantly, here are the games. They probably won't be trying to pitch us on an entirely new concept, so you don't necessarily need an October to March when you could do like a January to April, if that makes sense. And announcing it in January could make a lot of sense, because then they avoid hurting holiday sales at all for the Switch. Now, holiday sales season for the Switch is going to be weird to begin with, because it's in its 8th year, so it's going to be slow regardless. And I know people always get annoyed when people say, like, oh, so you think they just kind of never announce it or release it because they're always worried about hurting sales of the Switch. No, I don't believe that. But logically speaking, if you're Nintendo, the Switch is still selling pretty dang well. Certainly not as well as it was a few years ago, but it's still selling well enough to them that they're letting another whole holiday season kind of rest on its back. You don't want to mess with that, man. Also, to the whole January reveal, April release points, I've many times in the past said that one of the reasons I didn't think the Switch 2 would have been released in 2024, back when we were still talking about that, was because it would be too soon from when they're announcing it to releasing it, because the Switch had Breath of the Wild being marketed for it even before we actually saw the Switch itself. People knew that there was a new Zelda game coming out for Nintendo's new console before we even saw the Nintendo Switch. Whereas with the Switch 2, that's not necessarily true, and I've kind of used that as a point in the past of like, well, this is why it wasn't going to come out in 2024. But we have that game now for the Switch 2, so I think a short reveal for the console to release could make sense now, because hypothetically speaking, if this is a Switch 2 game, we now have Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. Metroid Prime is certainly not as big of a deal as something like Breath of the Wild was, but it is possible that Nintendo might be trying to use that as a similar kind of like, hey, we've shown you this game, guess what? It's also a launch title or a launch window title for our new Switch 2 console. Here's how much better it looks on the Switch 2, like that kind of thing. It honestly does kind of mirror what happened with the Switch back in 2016. I mean, the first time we really saw Breath of the Wild in any true meaningful way was June. We saw Metroid Prime 4 Beyond in June, and now we're going into the fall expecting a reveal for this console. So it is potentially kind of mirroring it in some way, but I just think people should maybe brace themselves for another 6 months of silence from Nintendo when it comes to this hardware. I'm not fully sold on that idea. I wanted to throw this video out just kind of to talk about it and speculate with you all. I really hope it's in September or October, but I feel like we should maybe prepare ourselves for a little bit of disappointment, a little tiny bit of sadness this fall if it doesn't get announced this year. We know it's getting announced before March 31st. We don't have to wait that long in the grand scheme of things. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that we have to wait until January to see this thing. That would be the absolute latest, though. There's no way they wait until March, right? I mean, I've even seen people commenting on my videos, seen people commenting on Twitter being like, hey, maybe this thing's not coming out until holiday 2025. I don't think so. I think this console will release next spring, be that March, April, or like I said, even maybe May, but I feel like that's a little bit too late even, so we'll see. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. I'll have more videos this week talking about EMEO, hopefully. I feel like we are due for more teases about EMEO from Nintendo. In fact, I'm actually recording this on Sunday night, so hopefully nothing gets announced Monday morning. Maybe they'll have to edit this part out, but so yeah, more videos coming this week, of course. Subscribe here for all of that and more. Comment down below on when you think the Switch 2 will actually be shown off to the world, and until next time, folks, peace.